challenging curriculum, our LCAP goal number 2.
Thank you, President McQuarrie. I'm going to invite Dr. Vernon Moore, our Director of Youth Advocacy, for this presentation. And so we just presented on LCAP Goal 1, which is closing the achievement gap. We have our second goal in the LCAP is access to a broad and challenging curriculum. And we've given other updates on broad and challenging curriculum and access in the ways that we do that. Tonight specifically, we're going to be focusing on the areas from the LCAP around ethnic studies, and specifically we made a commitment in our LCAP Goal 2.2. Well, I think Dr. Moore will go over that. Let me give a broader opening. We're going to focus on ethnic studies, and here's what we know, is that when we create our conditions and we're creating opportunities to offer a broad and challenging curriculum through an ethnic studies course, what we know is that our students are going to be able to do 3 things. Our students are going to be able to discover their own personal identity and why that personal identity is so important. Second, through this offering, they're going to be able to meet and learn about some of the world's most extraordinary and inspiring people, historically and currently. And when you can learn and meet extraordinary, inspiring people, and you understand what their values are, what their story is, what their history is, and you begin to see yourself in the stories of our most inspiring leaders and people, you see their values, you learn how inspiring leaders have found their passion and use their identity to make a difference in the world. We know our young people will be inspired by that. And then third, they will see themselves and realize, I can do that. I know who I am. I'm just like this person that I studied, and I'm going to be able to make this difference and this contribution, and my passion and my interest and my values come from a similar place of the people that I'm learning about and I'm studying about through an ethnic studies course. And then I will know as a student how I can contribute and I can make a difference and I can be one of the world's most inspiring people like those that I'm learning and studying about. So we put that in place by saying when we have a broad and challenging curriculum, we know that we're offering courses where our young people can learn about history, see themselves in that history, and then know what difference they're going to make. So with that, we're specifically addressing a very specific point in our LCAP, and I'd like Dr. Moore to share where we are with that work right now and how it's aligned to the other efforts across our system.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Martin, and good evening, Board. It's always a pleasure to present this very exciting work. As the Superintendent mentioned, we'll be reviewing our initial steps into and giving you an update into our ethnic studies work. On this very front slide, I would just like to point out that some of the graphics that you'll see are, a headline from the 2016, January 2016 Stanford Graduate School of Education Journal about the academic benefits of ethnic studies. We also have the Fair Education Act, which oftentimes is associated with our LGBTQ community or folks with disabilities, but the Accurate, Inclusive, and Respectful Education Act is really aligned in a legislative mandate with for ethnic studies. And you'll see the last pictures of one of our previous meetings where we had the Ethnic Studies Now Coalition here in March and in June to discuss this in the previous year in 2015. And some of those members are here, and I'm sure they've submitted a few speaker forms. Dr. McQuarrie.
We have 18 speakers.
So my presentation is relatively brief, but I do want to make sure I give you a pretty succinct update of where we are with ethnic studies. As the Superintendent Martin mentioned, this is directly reflected in our local control accountability plan, LCAP Goal 2 actions and services regarding equitable access to rigorous and well-rounded curricular opportunities. Specifically, item 2.2c says develop an ethnic studies course that meets the A through G, the University of California admission requirements. And also it indicates that we're partnering with the San Diego Community College District to provide ethnic studies related courses. So I'll be speaking about those efforts. But before I do, I want to be clear on what we mean when we talk about ethnic studies. Here we go. And this was a definition that I found from the University of California, Berkeley, and in 1968 they started at the collegiate level the oldest ethnic studies program in the nation. And in the turbulent 60s, certainly the era of civil rights, the focus was primarily around race and ethnicity, as indicated in this definition, and really focusing on bringing the study of people of color into the mainstream curriculum. What I think we've transformed in terms of our district and in terms of our work is, you'll notice this graphic that is included in this piece is a graphic that we talked about in our board workshop at the beginning of March around cultural proficiency and equity leadership. And so for us, ethnic studies is not simply a course of study or simply a set of circumstances where we're going to be studying even people of color or a specific group in our society. It's really all encompassing of gender, of sexuality, of race, ethnicity, ability, again reflected in the Fair Education Act and in other avenues, and so I'll be speaking about that, but it's really the notion of interdisciplinary and learning in all areas. So it's not, a lot of times when we talk about ethnic studies, we're talking about history and social studies courses, which is where some of our work has gone, but really ethnic studies spans all the disciplines and all of our coursework that our students would take: math, science, arts, literature, and so forth. So, and it's really, as Superintendent Martin pointed out, really grounded in our equity work. Having each child getting what he or she needs to be academically and socially successful. That's really the connection. And so it's important that we realize that this work in ethnic studies is aligned to other efforts. I think Dr. Evans, you pointed out, what about motivation and how do we inspire our students to have that love of reading? Well, our work in alignment with I think ethnic studies is a key piece of that, and we have to find ways that our students can make these very salient connections to the curriculum and to what they're studying. And I think those are pieces when students find and explore about themselves and about their culture, about and feel the value of that. I think that's where we can make some very, very real connections and inspire that love of learning. I had mentioned the Fair Education Act, and we have a Fair Education Committee that is working to create some deliverables for the 2016-17 school year, and it's under the direction of Dr. Wendy Rankber, who was just presenting. She and Juliana Lebke, our history and social studies resource teacher, are really focusing on developing some really robust items to add to our current curricular efforts that reflect this ethnic studies and multiple perspectives and cultures in our coursework. And so that's one very, very key alignment, and we have been working closely with Dr. Rankber and Juliana Lebke in this work. In fact, in an upcoming meeting, Juliana will be present to offer her connections of history framework to our proposed ethnic studies course. The National Equity Project, as Superintendent Martin mentioned, one of the pieces that has been part of the work that the principals and teachers have been doing in this latest iteration, in this latest training, is again keeping equity at the core of the Common Core and keeping our students. And I really feel compelled to share this, because this is what the teachers and the school leaders are studying with the National Equity Project, the focus in Common Core implementation has been on learning to teach to a higher bar or to deeper learning. But the same students who have struggled to achieve proficiency in an old set of standards will not automatically find success in the Common Core, not automatically. Understanding root causes of those struggles is imperative as educators as we make the shift to new standards, whether it be the need for stronger connection between learning and students' lives, or trusting and culturally congruent relationships between adults and students. But those are the directions we need to go, and those are the underpinnings of ethnic studies, is exactly that, is making students' culture, backgrounds, and those cultural connections very relevant and very real in a classroom. So all of these pieces are very connected to the ethnic studies work. And then the Principals Institutes, and we've talked about these keynote speakers, Dr. Yvette Jackson talking about situating learning in the lives of our students, Dr. Pedro Noguera talking about having an emotional connection, the emotional engagement in classrooms, and that can come from a cultural connection. And Dr. Jeffrey Duncan Andrade, who will be speaking at the end of this week to our principals, his work is really focused around equity and how we include acknowledging and addressing trauma that students bring, which can be part of their backgrounds, and how that can be addressed in our classrooms. Again, all of those are underpinnings to this ethnic studies work. And so at the community college, which was one of our first connections, we've had some involvement with what we would call ethnic studies courses. And again, I think there's a little bit of hesitation here, because sometimes when we think of ethnic studies courses, we're thinking of courses that are specifically designed for students of color. And the research tells us very clearly that nothing could really be further from the truth, that an ethnic studies perspective and multiple perspectives are really beneficial and required for all of our students, certainly in this diverse society. So we have offered and introduced and have students currently taking courses at two of our schools in particular that have very, very strong relationships with community colleges. Lincoln High School with the direct relationship as part of the STEAM Middle College with San Diego City College, and Kearney High School that has a direct relationship with Mesa College. And we've got students, and there's also the history of the United States from the Chicano perspective offered at Mesa College that Kearney students are taking as well. The principal wanted to make sure that I mentioned that in the presentation. But we do need to, A, expand these offerings, but B, expand in the recruitment effort. And one of the key ways is that last bullet point. As we introduce this introduction to ethnic studies and to these concepts to our students, we would expect for more students to want to take those deeper dives, maybe related to their own personal culture, but perhaps related to other cultures, so that they could access and understand and get that knowledge. And so that's really the idea is, as we expand the introduction to ethnic studies, that we will actually see more students be very, very interested to take these collegiate level courses in the near future. A lot of the work that we've been focused on in our Ethnic Studies Advisory Committee, and I'll talk about that in a moment, but is the development of the Introduction to Ethnic Studies course. And the brief descriptors here, the course was included in the board packet. We are in the process of finalizing it for A through G approval. And we've got 2 pilot sites where principals have said we will hold some sections aside and identify some teachers to teach these courses courses to some students so that we can get the course up off the ground in the classroom, particularly at the 9th grade level. Perhaps we could have some 10th graders in the course as well, but that'll be we'll be working very closely with our sites, because I know master schedules are in the midst of being developed and being finalized right now. But the 2 implementation sites are Lincoln and Sarah High School, and the principals at those schools have both committed to this work. And just a little bit about the course, and there's some architects of the course that are here in the audience, and I'm sure they'll be speaking a little bit to some of these pieces. But this course is very, very exciting and interesting. Again, beginning with building a classroom community, building identity, and if you take a look, Unit 5, and again, the course, the initial draft of the course is in your packet, but Unit 5, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Way back in 1948, the UN at their General Assembly in Paris created this document with over 24 articles that specifically point out human rights across nations and across governments, and it's a fascinating document. And for this to be a key feature in our Intro to Ethnic Studies really highlights the fact that everyone's culture, everyone's perspective and background matter, and that's reflected in that document, and that's why it gets a special treatment in this. But the course is a fascinating course, and there are some great projects that are associated with the course, including a culminating project wherein students have the opportunity to do some work in their community, to community improvement, community empowerment, to address some specific issues. So it's been a great journey working with the folks in developing this course, and that's been the focus of the Ethnic Studies Advisory Committee. And I just want to point out a few things. One, there's been some legislative mandates around it. Certainly the Fair Education Act from July 2011. And last year we had an AB 101 Ethnic Studies Assembly bill that unfortunately got returned unsigned by the governor. And I say unfortunately because it did take some of the steam out of a legislative mandate. However, as this board knows, there's some board resolutions that very clearly said almost regardless of that action by the state legislature, we are going to be committed to the work, and we have stayed committed to it. And I'm also happy to report that there's another bill that Alejo is presenting, the Assembly Bill 2016, that will reintroduce some of the ethnic studies mandates that were in the original bill that didn't get signed. So there is still some movement. The Ethnic Studies Advisory Committee is really, out of the resolution, the more formal committee that has designated meeting times, and we take attendance. And I need to point this out, and I'm not going to read the names of the folks who have participated in the committee, but and I truly do apologize for this, but it's all those folks, teachers, administrators. We've also had classified members, and I have to call the name of one of our members that has been dutifully coming, and that's Mary Lou Finley. She works at Bell Middle School. She's a special education technician, and she has come dutifully to all of our meetings. So the classified, I truly apologize that wasn't on the list there, but I wanted to make sure I pointed that out. And the group has really identified 3 areas: ethnic studies course development, which I just shared, teacher professional development, which is really crucial and key. And we know as we get this course up and off the ground, we have to train our teachers, because I felt this connection, as Dr. Marriott said. A lot of our teachers, they're not coming with the training for literacy and literacy development. Well, the same is around this idea of multiple perspectives. Many of our teachers come with training around some of our canonized history, and certainly a lot of pieces that that we see reflected in our textbooks and other places, but this notion of incorporating multiple perspectives is a talent that we need to continue to develop, and we're committed to that. And there's also this notion of reviewing our curriculum and making some real recommendations on how we can expand. I think one of the hesitations that we're seeing in our Ethnic Studies Advisory Committee is we don't necessarily want to see two tracks of coursework. Is there the ethnic studies track that we'll probably find a lot of our kids of color and others taking, and then there's sort of the traditional track. We have to, and we will be searching and constantly looking for ways to blend that to ensure that all of our students are being exposed to multiple perspectives. So we've also really focused on ethnic studies work group, and so again there's sort of this formalized advisory committee that was really a part of the resolution, but the work group has met several times. There's many folks that are here. If there's folks that have been associated with ethnic studies, could you guys please stand just to be recognized? So these are folks that have come to advisory committees and work group committees. I'm sure some of them have turned in speaker forms. But this is a very, very passionate group that on their volunteer free time, after school, we've been coming together to, again, create the course and plot out and plan teacher training and other pieces. And so this is, again, been very exciting work. And our next steps associated with this work are, we have a course, you have it in front of you, but it needs a little bit of fine-tuning. We're going to get some input from linking this coursework to the history frameworks from our history department, but we need to really determine some resources and really what it's going to take. When we look across the state and we see other districts that have implemented ethnic studies, some of them, like Los Angeles, made the newspaper. They did it very quickly, and they really didn't take their time to identify resources. And it was September, and they were rolling forward with the course, and teachers weren't trained, resources weren't provided, and so there was a real struggle for a couple of years. I mean, that was well documented in the periodicals coming out of LA. But I think we've got a very, very good plan. We've been sharing it with the board. We have the support from the resolutions. And so our job is really to define what those resources are, ensure that our pilot is successful, and then look at how we can, it's been our strategy, look at how we can replicate and take it to scale across the district. And so, again, I'm very enthusiastic and very proud of the work. And our next Ethnic Studies Advisory Committee will be coming up in May 4th to be exact. All those meetings are held here in the Education Center. And even if folks, I know board members have attended, and thank you for coming, but even folks that haven't attended in the past, please feel free to attend this, and obviously I can be contacted for more information.
Thank you. We do have, as mentioned earlier, we have 18 speakers, so with 20 minutes scheduled for the item. It'll be 1 minute each. If you can keep your remarks to that'd be greatly appreciated. We'll start with early submissions. Brianna Zavala, Guillermo Gomez, Danny Blas, Tricia Gallagher, Gertson, Leila Torres as the first 5. On deck, Denisha, Mary Lou Finley, Eduardo Ochoa, Rennie Zambrano, and Gloria Verdu. That would be the second set of 5. So we'll start with Brianna. Thank you.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Brianna Zavala. I am a third-year UCSD student as well as a Lincoln alumni. And growing up, I always blamed the individual if they failed in life. I heavily believed in the idea of meritocracy, and I held true to the notion that hard work equals success. But it was in Summer Bridge at UCSD that I was first introduced to my ethnic studies curriculum. And it was there that I realized that it's not always the student that is the problem, but it is the lack of self-awareness, social capital, and most importantly, it is the institution. Ethnic studies offered me a new lens on life, one that completely changed my thinking. It provided me with so many responses to many questions, which would often end with, "That's just the way it is." You must fund this pilot course. Commit to growing the curriculum and assure that it will excel past the 9th grade. If you continue to take away this curriculum from students, you will be doing what history has done all along, reducing knowledge, maintaining privilege, and reproducing the educational pipelines that target underrepresented youth. Do not be fearful of how the students will respond to the material. If they feel intrigued, good. They are learning new elements that have been taught before. If they feel confused, great. They are encountering curriculum that is dense, analytical, and informative. And if they feel anger, excellent. They are relating to the material and identifying that their history has been denied from them and an institutional change needs to be made outside of the classroom. Thank you, and I appreciate your careful review.
Thank you, Brianna. Guillermo? Guillermo Gomez?
Good evening. My name is Guillermo Gomez. Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Cindy Martin. I'm one of your proud teachers at Lincoln High School. I'm a Spanish teacher. And today, Ed Week released an article that titled, "Student Engagement, is it authentic or is it compliant?" And just because it gives different scenarios of why maybe students might be just taking notes and listening to a teacher, do we interpret that as being authentic engagement? But I can tell you this, teaching the social justice course, which is the initial version of the ethnic studies course, in my 20 years of teaching, I never had a content or a class where authentic engagement was just natural. Students were engaged. We were not only reading the word, but the world. And not only that, but it laid the foundation for students to fall in love with education again. And we know this because not only from experience, but from several studies that were done on the course and from many of the students that you will probably, former students you will listen today. And that's the reason why the Ethnic Studies Now Coalition began this movement. And we were here last June, and it's commendable that the board took a stand to make sure that even though the Alejo bill did not pass, that we would continue this work. And just to let you know that the new bill calls for a 9th grade elective course to be offered at every high school in California. So we are ahead of the game because our course is a 9th grade elective, and it's going to be meaningful, and it's going to provide authentic engagement. So we need your full support, and thank you. The movement continues.
Thank you, Guillermo. Danny Blas?
Thank you, President. Danny Bloss. As a teacher, I feel we still have a little work to do. We're doing some work on the British imperialism in India, and one of my students brought this article up in the New York Times, and it's entitled "Racist Drinking Game Causes Uproar at a High School in New Jersey." And apparently these kids in New Jersey, these high school kids, use a swastika and a Star of David as part of the game they played called, quote, Jews versus Nazis. The game was published on social media. One of their peers took a screenshot and blogged the incident and described it as racist and insane. The blogger was accused of placing the school in a poor light. Something like this can happen anywhere. But my point is we have some work to do. In our class discussion, some of us commented that this particular situation may have been overblown, not a big deal, and a suggestion that an African-American blogger did not need to worry about something like this. Our district has a real opportunity to deliver an ethnic studies curriculum that will make a significant impact in our youth's thinking. I urge the board to fully support the piloting of the curriculum, teacher training, and show your true commitment to ethnic studies. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny Bless. Teresa Gallagher? Geertsen?
Good afternoon. My name is Layla Torres, and I'm a senior at Paloma High School. On behalf of all the unidentified students in our history books, I felt it was appropriate to present a poem I wrote that explains the importance of having and learning a culturally relevant curriculum. The title of my poem is called The Sleeping Giant. Indigenous hands have molded my past, hidden histories of greatness untold. The beauty of my people now unfold. Our skin outcried in chloroplast. Curriculum failure left us outcast. My relevance in books rotted like mold. As land counterculture no longer holds. The sleeping giant has spoken at last. But wait, my stories are on my Facebook page. Fabricated books with Victor's campaign. Disregard and stripped our humanity. How dare you put my story in a cage? Slavery, genocide, rape, loot, and pain. Power, resistance, grips my sanity. I support ethnic studies because I believe my story should be told. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you. Good. So, Tricia?
Yes, thank you. I speak on behalf of the Board of California Association, the California chapter of the National Association for Multicultural Education, and as a parent of children in the San Diego Unified School District. In addition to the research that shows that ethnic studies improves GPA, reduces truancy, increases test scores, and also increases scores in traditional subjects like math and in English. Students who take ethnic studies also increase their cross-racial understanding. So ethnic studies is not just for students of color, it's also for white students. And so that's a really important point and very personal to me because of my children. Understandably absent in the literature is a robust discussion of the political value of ethnic studies for white students. One can assume that because K-12 curriculum and pedagogy is already steeped in Eurocentrism, that white students are receiving an excellent education that prepares them to engage in the political process. Although the education system favors white children, assuring them unearned benefits, ethnic studies can also help my children understand and reject the perpetuation of the status quo so that they understand how they got to such a comfortable position in our society through racist practices, through a history of not being able to vote, etc. So understanding that context is very important for them to become engaged in this work of ethnic studies. Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia. Next set of speakers, Dereja Gaines, Mary Lou Finley, Eduardo Ochoa, Renee Zambrano, and Gloria Verdu, to be followed by Dr. Yvette Hornsby, Mina, Larry Thurman, and Danielle Rojas, Lindsay Birmingham, and Don Miller. Okay. All right. Dereja, if I said that correctly.
Denasia. Hello,
Denasia,
my name is Denasia Gaines. I'm a first-year student at UC San Diego, where my major is ethnic studies and Spanish, double majoring. And I'm a Lincoln alumni, graduated last year. The importance of ethnic studies is it allows students who are historically excluded to be included. It allows students to go beyond the Eurocentric ideologies that have been taught. It allows students to be engaged in the material and to make it personal. An example that we've learned, I got the opportunity to learn about ethnic studies in 9th grade through my teacher, Mr. Ochoa. I didn't take social justice, but I was in his AVID class. And there I really got an understanding of the different things that are going on in the world and how I can connect it back to my life and why it's important for me to pursue higher education and to go beyond what society has for me to do. Tucson, Arizona is where an example that I hold near and dear to my heart because they had Raza studies, which is a version of ethnic studies. And because of this, 50%, before ethnic studies, they had a 50% dropout rate. And after ethnic studies, they had a 93% of students who were enrolled graduated from high school, and 85% of those students went to college. If our goal as the San Diego Unified School District is to send students to college, this is the way. Ethnic studies not only includes students of color, and it includes white students, and it teaches them about white privilege and privileges that students of color, which I can identify as, don't have. So ethnic studies is important because it just makes sure that students are not just being taught one side of the story, but both. So thank you.
Thank you, Denasia. Mary Lou Finley. Thank you for your contribution.
Yeah, my name is Mary Lou Finley. I am a special education assistant at Bell Middle School, work in at least 2 separate history classes. And as the student just pointed out, we say we're concerned about dropouts from our schools. And the studies that have been done show that it makes a significant cut in the dropout of these students because they feel so, right now, they feel so totally unincluded and unconnected to what's being taught in the classroom. And even though I'm at a Bell Middle School, I see it where the kids are struggling and come up with the statement, I don't care, when it comes to doing the work, because they're left out and afraid of trying. And I definitely think that ethnic studies must be a requirement for all of the students. If we want to ever get away from the mess we're in right now politically, we've got to reach our students with how to understand not only their own background, but the diverse society in which we are living. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Eduardo Ochoa.
Hi, my name is Kiki Ochoa. I'm also another proud Lincoln High School teacher. And I just want to start off with highlighting that today was another excellent, beautiful academic, excellent, success at Lincoln High School, like almost every single day at Lincoln High. We have beautiful kids that just want their story to be told. We have great educators that want to share those stories with all the kids throughout the San Unified School District. And then considering the political climate in our nation at the moment, and all the divisiveness that it currently exists, I think an ethnic studies course where you learn to love oneself and each other in a spirit of brotherhood and sisterhood, that's the exact thing that our district needs, every single kid in San Diego needs, in Los Angeles and in the entire nation, and on a global level. When we're talking about human rights, the reality is that a lot of people don't see each other as human beings. They see each other as objects to exploit. And when we teach each other who we truly are, and we realize that we all have the same aspirations and hopes, one day we can build a better world, and this class is the first step in doing that. So thank you.
Thank you. All set. Eduardo. Rene Zambrano.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, my name is Rene Zambrano. I'm a teacher at Bell Middle School, and I'm also a member of the Association of Raza Educators. I'm here to speak on behalf of, in support of the Ethnic Studies course that the Ethnic Studies Committee is currently working on. First, I want to commend the board for their excellent initiative and leadership in making sure that the Ethnic Studies course is is happening here in this district, because we know it's happening statewide also. I'm here specifically to address the critical issue of funding to make ethnic studies the piloting course possible, specifically for the high schools and middle schools. Currently, there's I know there's one principal who's really interested in piloting the course, but because we're losing students, and we're losing, once we lose students, and that also decreases teachers at a school site. So that creates a limitation for any school that's really interested and passionate about teaching a course like this. So my question to the board real quick is, will the board allocate resources and funding such as an FTE to schools who want to have ethnic studies at their schools? And also, is the funding for ethnic studies specified in the LCAP document? So thank you. And I also want to commend Dr. Vernon Moore, for his excellent work in leading this ethnic studies movement. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Gloria Verdue, and I'm a concerned parent, and I have grandkids in the San Diego School District. And I just wanted to read, 1966, the Black Panther Party came up with a 10-point program. What do we want? What we believe. And this is 2016, so that's 50 years ago, and it holds now just as much as it held then. So this is point 5. We want education for our people that exposes the true nature of American society. We want education that teaches us our true history and our role in the present-day society. We believe in an educational system that will give to our people knowledge of self. If a person does not have knowledge of him or herself and their position in society and the world, then he or she has little chance to relate to anything else. So I want to thank the board for listening to us, and also Vernon for our working so closely with the Ethnic Studies Coalition. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. We have Dr. Iveri Hornsby.
That's the second time, Mr. President, that you wrecked my name. It's Dr. Yvette Hornsby Minor, so I get an extra minute for that. Okay, so don't hit the buzzer.
Well, that's the first time you correct me, but thank you
Yvette
so much.
Hornsby Minor. That's okay,
Yeah.
with an E.
Thank you.
I am a professor and was hired by San Diego Community College to teach a Black History course at Lincoln High School. And I wanted to share a little bit with you about my experiences as a professor and teaching a college course for high school students. The first week of my course, I always ask students to interview each other, to share a little bit about themselves, and so they do that. The second piece of that is I ask them to also then interview each other and talk about their ethnic and cultural and racial identity. But of course, first of all, I start with making sure they understand what is race, what is culture, etc. The fascinating thing about this particular day was that when we got to the debriefing, and I wanted to know, okay, so what did you feel, what did you think about that discussion? Of course, as high school students, they start talking all together, and then finally one student said, well, you know, I've never thought about it. No one's ever really asked me about that. So that's troubling. The second assignment that was very interesting for me was this. I asked students to bring in hip-hop, and you know that's risky, but I said bring in a song, and we're going to take a look at Black history, and we're going to see what you can pick up from the lyrics. So of course they bring in a song, and I listen and I read the lyrics, and I'm like, I don't really like this. I don't. So they said, no, listen to the song again. I'm like, I really don't. They said, okay, take it home. You have to listen to it once, and then you have to listen to it again, and then you're going to get it. I said, okay, fine. So they saw me again. They said, did you listen to the song? I said, no, please, that's your homework. Listen to the song. So finally I listened to the song. And then I listened to the song again and go, oh, okay. So embedded in that song were quite a bit of pieces of Black history. So what did we do? I said, okay, we're here. Now let's deconstruct and analyze this. I think the song is Black of the Berry, to then talk about Black history. The last piece that I wanted to share with you is when I talked to the students about what do you know about history, or Black history, they started to say, well, you know, we were slaves, okay, and, well, we know about Rosa Parks, and we know about Martin Luther King. I said, okay, that's great. Okay, so, but here is the problem with that I'm sharing with you, is that if students know that Rosa Parks sat down on the bus, that Martin Luther King stood up and said, we shall not be moved, and that the first thing out of their mouth, we are slaves, or we were slaves, then we're talking about a story, a singular narrative of oppression, of humiliation, worthlessness, hopelessness, and helplessness. So one of the things that I'm begging you to do, and I'm here on behalf of my students to share with you the stories that they have shared with me. I'm here on behalf of, as an educator and a scholar, and also a community member and a parent, but I'm also here to say that yes, you are right at the door of implementation, right? So you have the curriculum, you have the what you're going to do, you have the when you're going to do it, you got the where, the sites, and who, where. We're going to talk about professional development, but the biggest important question here is how. How much will it cost to make this happen? So that's your job, Mr. President, and also to the rest of the board, is how are you going to fund this to make it happen? Because you know the research, you know the data, you know all of that. We have committed it to death, you've had meetings to death, we've done all this wonderful work. So you have it here, so I implore you, take care of this. I'm going to go back to my students and tell them, although you wrecked my name, Mr. President, that you're doing a good job.
Dr. Yvette,
thank you.
Thank you. All right. There's always hope. Larry Thurman, Daniel Rojas, Lindsay Birmingham, Don Miller, and I'll hold off on that one. I'll get it right. Thank you.
All right, good evening, members of the board. I'm here as a teacher from Lincoln. I've been teaching there since reopened. We had an amazing opportunity to have a social justice program, which is building the framework for this new ethnic studies class. And I've seen the work, and so I only have a minute, so I don't want to spend time on all the wonderful stories I could go through. But it's funny to me because we were so ahead of the game. 7, 8 years ago, we're doing this work. And now it's coming back, and it's frustrating because now I'm hearing restorative circles, restorative justice. We just got introduced to paper tigers with trauma-sensitive education and curriculum. All these things had already been in motion in those classrooms, and it's interesting that we're having to fight now. It was quick to get the paper tigers out and get the restorative, but now we're having to fight to get the class that fits right in line with all of this stuff that you're preaching and giving to us. So I'm hoping that you can see the connection. This class does not work on just history alone. It builds people. It builds character. And I'll leave you with this because I'm sure the minute's almost up, but we talk about kids understanding the world.
Sure.
But if they can't understand themselves, there's no way they can understand the world. And this class will help them understand themselves. Thank you.
Great start. Thank you, Larry. Daniel Rojas and Lindsay.
Thank you for allowing me the time to speak today. I won't go through all the research conclusions that have shown that ethnic studies programs increases attendance and matriculation, and how it aligns with your guys' philosophy on the Vision 2020 and getting students to be worldly students. But I would like to say I've been substitute teaching for about 3 years, and I've subbed everywhere from San Ysidro, Sweetwater, and San Diego Unified School District. And I have to say, before I even knew about the ethnic studies program, I got to sub for classes for Guillermo Gomez and Kiki Ochoa and Larry Thurman, and I have to say that the students in those classes are the students that every teacher wants to teach. These are students who are empowered, who can talk, who can speak and speak their mind, and these are the types of values that we want in our students. And I'm a UCSD credential candidate, and I would love to be able to teach a class like ethnic studies, so I really hope that you guys keep the momentum going.
Lindsay Birmingham. Hi, Lindsay.
Lindsay Birmingham, SDEA President. I wanted to first say that SDEA fully supports the ethnic studies programs in our schools, as we did last year with the Alejo resolution, or the Alejo bill. We have teachers, as you've heard tonight, that are extremely committed and ready to take on these courses. They already do many of these courses and have embedded them in their current courses. So I would hope that we won't just rely on community college courses, but really empower our own members to teach these courses as our history courses and elective courses. And as you've heard before, I think Renee Zambrano was the first one to mention it, there needs to be resources behind getting these programs started, providing the professional development, providing the FTEs that our schools need for these courses. With the few minutes I have left, I wanted to mention the agenda item before very quickly, because I think it really aligns with this. SDA this year has really been focused on empowering our educators to have a voice in improving the schooling for our students. So along with standing up for ethnic studies, our educators are standing up for the extensive amount of time that's being spent on testing. So on May 4th, we are going to be informing, as we're legally allowed to do so, Ed Code 60615. We're informing our parents of their rights to opt out in the May 4th day of action. So more information, cta.org/opt-out. We can inform them, we can encourage them, and we're going to take on those rights as well.
Thank you, Liz. So, Don Miller, Chandi Kasiri, and I know and Colette Ducharme, and Zulema Torres.
Good evening, Don Miller. I'm here on behalf of the Association of Raza Educators, and as a high school history teacher, I'm here to thank you and to emphasize the community's feelings that this work cannot happen fast enough or soon enough for our students in schools. ARE has been in contact with thousands of teachers and families across California who are enthusiastically following this effort, this critical work that's happening here in San Diego and the few other districts that are brave enough to take on ethnic studies. It should be all the districts, all the schools. We're leading this work, and it couldn't be happening at a more critical time, a time when we see the rise of powerful racist autocrats who make broad and sweeping statements about entire groups of our community, a time when we see the continued publication of textbooks and curriculum that are single-storied and stereotypical at best, a time when we witness the continued attacks of state violence against our children. Ethnic studies is just the beginning of the action that we need to take, and the time to act must be now. ADE believes that as educators, it is our duty to ensure that education serves as a tool for the liberation of our communities. We commend this district's commitment to introducing and implementing a decolonizing pedagogy for the promotion of a truly democratic education. Your continued courage to do what is right by our students, particularly in this area of work, does not go unnoticed. Teachers and community members statewide contact us and are reinvigorated and inspired by this movement because they understand precisely what is at stake. This is not just about introducing another class or a new curriculum. This is about the rehumanization of education and ultimately of ourselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dawn. Achandi?
Kind of small. Hi, my name is Achandi Kisageti, and I'm 17. I'm a junior, and I attend Lincoln High School, and I'm a proud Hornet. So I think that we should be able to have ethnic studies because it's important to know where your background is and where your ancestors come from. We stay learning the same things, same people, same places, and it gets old. Caucasian history is not the only history we have because we all are different backgrounds, and I don't think it's fair that we have to learn a certain type of history when multiple races have done something to change the world in a positive way. And I think they deserve some credit. Actually, they deserve full credit because multiple races helped change the world and help the world become how it is today. We are changing history and changing the world. Adults always tell us to know our background and where we come from, but how can we do that if we don't know our background or have a class to take it? We don't know anything about it because we're not able to learn it at school. And yeah, that's about it, to be honest.
Well said. Thank you, Achandi. Colette.
Okay, my name is Colette Ducharme, and I work at Lincoln High School, and I've been there for almost 8 years now, and I personally think we have the best kids in the district. I have a daughter who's in middle school, and it's sad that I have to bring her to my school as much as I do, so she has the interaction and the exposure to some of the most incredible and amazing students we have, and she wouldn't have something like this class can not only teach her you know, the different cultures and ethnicities, but we probably wouldn't have the perception we do out in the public that Lincoln is what it is. I mean, we have great kids, and you hear things that are totally inaccurate and inappropriate, and I wish that people had a better understanding what's going on our campus, because there's a lot of good. We have great teachers, we have great kids, and this class would probably highlight what some of the other kids are not exposed to.
Thank you, Colette. Our last speaker is Olima Torres.
Last one. Good afternoon. My name is Zulema Torres. I'm a teacher at Marcy and at New Dawn. I'm a Spanish teacher there. First of all, I'd like to thank the board for the commitment and the promise that they made last summer to all students in San Diego Unified. We as teachers already know that when we have ethnic studies infused lessons, that's when our kids are obviously the most engaged. And it's obvious that it is because they have that sense of belonging, that identity recognition, and overall pride for who they are, and you know, simply because the curriculum is relevant to them, so they see themselves in that material. I find it outrageous, though, that not too many schools have bought into or jumped on, you know, the whole ethnic studies when we only have 2 schools to pilot. I think that the district can do much more to push other schools to enforce this this type of commitment to all students in their sites. Just like reading and math levels matter, ethnic studies also matters and should be recognized. The course that has been brought up is very rigorous, is very challenging, and I think that it offers all of the curriculum requirements that are, you know, through the Common Core courses that we have currently. As an educator and as a parent, mother of Leila Torres also, I have many other nieces and nephews in the district. The board's commitment should be a loyal and genuine one for all students. I don't want it to become just a mediocre movement that offers a feel-good course. We want to hold the board accountable and for the board to support all aspects of implementing ethnic studies at all high schools. As the second largest district, I think we should spearhead it and we should be ahead of the game. Thank you.
Thank you. Julema. Hey, any other comments from, the board? Do it.
Yeah, thank you, President McCory. So I just first of all want to thank Vernon Moore and the members of the, yes, and the members of the Ethnic Studies Task Force and the entire community that's been really helping to build this effort for years and years, as a couple of our speakers from Lincoln talked about. And I think there were a couple of important points that were made tonight. One is that the course itself is incredibly exciting, and just looking at the the different parts of the course. However, this is not about a single course. It's certainly about making sure that we move forward with the course and move forward, not just in the 2 pilot high schools, but move forward throughout the district. But it's also, I think, an important point that's been made from the beginning of this conversation, which is this is about our entire curriculum. And I think we're going to go through a period over the next few years where we're identifying something as the ethnic studies curriculum, but of course we need to be at a place where we're not distinguishing the ethnic studies curriculum from the curriculum. The curriculum is about what we teach our students so that they understand themselves, understand their story, understand the world that they're in, and understand their place in moving forward and leading that world. And in a community like ours, in our district, but of course our district mirrors the community of California and increasingly mirrors the community of this country, that story is all of our story. And so we have to make sure that as we move this process forward, we're looking at every class that we teach from TK, pre-K, all the way through 12th grade, and it's the history and the social sciences, but of course it's our literacy courses, it's our English, it's our math, it's our science, it's our arts. Everything has to be about a curriculum that helps young people understand their story and then helps them understand how to get out and lead the world in the future. And so that is, I think, the ongoing work of taking something that today we're calling an ethnic studies curriculum, so that in the future we simply understand that as our curriculum. And the other point that I think is important, and again, Superintendent Martin is right to continually remind the board that it's our job to set a vision of where we want to go, and it's the superintendent and the staff's job to determine how we get there. But I would actually make a motion tonight that that we ensure that the resources are there, are in place to move this work that today we're calling ethnic studies, and that we're actually in the future moving towards the development of our entire curriculum, that we move this work forward so that we've got the resources in place to make sure we can properly implement this work as it goes forward.
I'll second the motion to fund the work.
Yep. Been a motion and a second. Discussion. Yeah, Trustee Spain.
I think that you so eloquently put it. When you have a single course, it's easy to chop it off. But if you infuse it through everything, because it's about who you are, and that's the way it should be taught, so that every child in every classroom is exposed to the truth. And we're talking about the truth, which is telling the whole story. So I support this 100%.
Trustee Evans?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm very impressed with how carefully thought out this is, based on research and academic rigor and the realities of our society. So I think that's really important. I think when we talked about it before, as Trustee Barrera was saying, one of the things I was really emphasizing at that time was it's really a comprehensive thing that has to be infused into all the curriculum. But one of the things I'm realizing tonight is that unless we start with this as the beachhead, in terms of having a specific ethnic studies course, we're not going to arrive at having it infused into all of our curriculum. So I heartily support it also.
Okay. Any other comments? Let's vote. Yeah, I too want to thank the presentation and all the speakers tonight. Absolutely incredibly impassioned step forward, and thank you, Doctor. Thank you, thank you.
What was your name again?
Dr. Yvette Hornsby Minor.
All right, let's have coffee, Dr. Yvette. Okay. All right, thank you. We're moving on to F1. Are the Board of Consent agenda, and we have speaker for F1.
I'll move the consent